Hello, Tony Burke here with the second of 3 screencasts for construction studies students at the University of Westminster to introduce them to the use of Revit 2014. In this screencast we're going to be considering how we navigate our way around Revit and looking at some of the tools and techniques we can use to do that. When we open Revit, the first screen that we see is known as the splash screen. From here you can open a brand new project or reopen an existing project that you've been working on, and that's what we're going to do on this occasion. We're going to open this project here, which is known as Block B. So I'm just going to come out of this screen and go into the live version of Revit, so just bear with me for a moment, and opening Revit, this is what we see. So we can now see a 3D model, one that's already been prepared, of a block of 4 townhouses. Each one of the townhouses is 3 stories, so we can see that this end section is one townhouse, then there's 2, 3 and 4 separate houses. So clearly we're looking here at the 3D view of the model, but if we turn our attention to the left hand side of the screen to what's called the project browser, we can see all of the other views that are available for this model. So as we scroll down through that, we can see that there are various floor plans. So if we click on the ground floor plan, it opens a view of exactly the same model. It's not something that's been prepared entirely separately, it is just a different view of the same model. Similarly with the elevations, if we scroll down through the project browser, we can see that there are 4 separate elevations, one for each side of the building. So if we click on the south elevation, then we can see what is effectively the front elevation of the building. We can also see that there is a section line shown on there, and scrolling down through the project browser we can see that there are a couple of sections which have already been produced for this building. Clicking on one of those takes us to the view of that section, but it's not something that's been prepared separately, it's just a different view of the same model. Okay, so let's go back into the 3D view and consider how we might navigate our way around the view, because this is not a static view of the model. It is just looking at it as we see it at the moment from one particular perspective. Up in the top right hand corner there's something known as the Viewcube. If I click on that and hold down the left hand mouse button and move the Viewcube in any direction, the model moves in the same direction. So I can now adjust the perspective that I'm looking at of that model. So I can move it left and right, I can move it up and down, and I can look at that model from any perspective I want. That's using the Viewcube. There are other techniques for navigating our way around the model, because I personally find the Viewcube a little bit cumbersome. Most of the other techniques make use of the scroll wheel on the mouse, and the scroll wheel on the mouse performs several useful functions in Revit. Firstly, you can zoom in and out using the scroll wheel. So simply turning the scroll wheel on the mouse enables us to zoom in and out of the model to any level of detail that we want. So we can zoom right into a particular item on the model and look at it in close-up, or we can zoom right out to get the entire building within our view. So that's zooming. The second thing that we can do using the scroll wheel is something called panning, where we can adjust the position of our model on the screen. Again, we use the scroll wheel, but rather than turning it, we simply click on the scroll wheel and hold it down. And as we hold it down and move the mouse around, the position of the model on the screen moves with us. So it's a very effective way of adjusting our way of looking at the model. The third way of navigating is using a function called orbit, and we do this by holding down the shift key on the keyboard and again holding down the scroll wheel on our mouse. And now as we move the mouse, we can orbit our way around the building, much like we could in the Viewcube, but personally I think a much simpler and cleaner way of moving around the building. So we can move it left and right, or we can move the model up and down and look at the model from any perspective that we want to. So those are the main tools for navigating our way around. For those of you that use a laptop and perhaps don't regularly use a mouse, there's one other tool that I will draw your attention to, and in order to access it you can press F8 on the keyboard, or you can hold down Shift and press W on the keyboard. So it's either F8 or Shift and W, and this brings up a tool that's known as the steering wheel. Now, I'm not going to use the steering wheel because I personally don't like it. I prefer using the mouse. But if you do use the touchpad on your keyboards, then you'll find that the steering wheel enables you to do those zoom, pan and orbit functions much more effectively, but using the touchpad. So I'll leave you to play around with that if that's something that you would prefer to use. But for the moment, I'm actually going to switch it off. Okay, so we're still in the 3D view. I'd like to just demonstrate now just how powerful a tool this software is, and in order to do that I want you just to focus on a couple of elements of this model. The central two houses here are the front doors to those houses. On each side of the front doors rather, we can see these two small windows. If I click on one of the windows, you can see that it's effectively highlighted in blue. I'd like to draw your attention now to the properties palette over on the left hand side of the screen. Because I've now highlighted just one element of the model, we can now see the properties of that element. So we can see that it's a single casement window, we can see the dimensions of it, we can see the sill height and all sorts of other properties that relate solely to that window. If I click on another element, for example the other window, exactly the same information appears because those properties are unique to that element. If I was to click on a different window, again the information would change. But let's just focus on these two windows for a moment. Let's look at them now in plan view. So if we go into the ground floor plan, we can see that having clicked on it in the 3D model, it's already highlighted in the plan. So by clicking on or doing anything to an element in one view, it automatically adjusts it in another view. And we can see that each of these two small windows provides daylight into a small WC. Supposing we decided that we weren't going to have any windows in our WC, so we deleted them. We've got that window highlighted. I'm just going to now touch on delete on the keyboard. It deletes that window. I do exactly the same there. I highlight the window, I delete it. So now I've deleted those windows from the plan view. But look what happens when I go back into the 3D view. Those windows have now disappeared. If I go into the south elevation, again, those windows are no longer visible. That's because I've deleted the windows from the model. I haven't just deleted them from one particular graphical representation of the building. I've actually deleted them from the model. So whichever view I look at those windows in, they will not be there because I've actually deleted them. So that's a very sort of powerful a way of demonstrating just how powerful the software is. For the purposes of this, I'm going to undo that. So I click on the undo button in the quick access toolbar at the top. Click it again to replace the windows, and we can see them there again. Okay, let's go back into our 3D view again. Let's zoom out a little bit. You notice that on this elevation, just get the centered on the screen. On this elevation, this central panel of wall is different from the end panels. The end panels are facing brickwork, and this central panel here is a rendered finish. Let's again look at that in plan view. So we go into our ground floor plan, and this is the section of wall that we're talking about. If I click on that wall, I can highlight the whole wall. Again, I can look at the properties for that wall, and I can see displayed there the information about that wall, and it tells me that that has got a rendered finish to its external face. Supposing I wanted to change that, I just click on that down arrow and I look at my options. What other types of wall are available to me? I might decide that I want facing brickwork externally. So I select that, and the software starts working, and it adjusts the whole model and provides me now with a section of wall that is finished with facing brickwork. If I go back into the 3D view, I can see that the rendered finish has now disappeared and it's been replaced with facing brickwork. If I go into the south elevation, again, as opposed to previously seeing a rendered finish, I've now got facing brickwork. If I change my mind, I click on undo and the rendered finish is back. Okay, let's now go into the plan view again. Let's go into the ground floor plan. We can see that there are two section lines shown there. One is a cross section running through there, and then a longitudinal section running through there. Let's suppose that we wanted to add in a third section. Let's suppose we wanted a cross section running through the central part of our block. So we want to add in a section. Look at the ribbon across the top here. We've got the View tab open. With the View tab open, I select Section. It's prompting me now to save my project because I haven't saved it for a while. So it's now saving the file. So just bear with me while it completes that saving. What I'm going to do once it's completed this saving is just add in the section. So I'll just remind you of where we were. We were in the View tab, we select Section, I come down, a little crosshair appears on the screen which I can move around, and I can now position my section line anywhere I want. So let's suppose I want the section line to run through there. I click once, I then pull the line down, click again, I hit enter on the keyboard, and that has added in an additional section line. If I now go across to the project browser, under sections you'll see that a third section has been added. If I double click on that, you can see exactly where that section falls, and you can see what it looks like. So it's just another view of exactly the same model. It's not something that's been produced separately. So I hope that that's been useful in helping you to navigate your way around the various tools that we use in Revit. In the next screencast, we'll actually start building our basic model. Thank you.